Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, Lamsaktas Bava Daf Ayin Aleph. We are going to begin on Ayin Aleph Amud Aleph. Hopefully, I said that right. On the very top, second line, from the top, two dots. Gun of a Tavach B'Yom Kippur. Now, on Yom Kippur, as opposed to Shabbos, which is an Isser Skilo, where you're punished by the Adam, over here there's an Isser Kares. So the din is you are still chayv dal b'hei. So Arya Mai Nehida Tekatal Leika. I understand that you're not killed. Malchus Me'ika. But if a person violates the lav of Yom Kippur, you actually get malchus. V'kaimullah de'enu leika mishalim. We know you don't get both. So Amri Hamani Rameir Hidir leika mishalim. So the truth is, he holds that you do get malchus. So too on Yom Kippur, says Rashi, as it quotes the Gemara in Makos and Daf Daled. So you testify upon someone that he owes $200. And it turns out that the first group are plotting witnesses. So the din is they get malchus, but they also have to pay. And they're different psukim. And since they're different psukim, therefore they're chayav both. And therefore also over here, chayav both. See, Rameir fil tavach b'Shabbos, so she be chayav dal b'hei also on Shabbos, according to him. So v'chitei malokim mishalom islay, meis mishalom leislay. Maybe he only holds that you get malchus and pay. However, you don't get killed and pay. So v'lo, is that true? V'sanya gana v'tavach b'Shabbos. So it says beferish. If you shecht on Shabbos, which is obviously an iser Chiyav, Isser Diraisa, it's a Chiyav Misa. And let's read the rest. Gun of a Tavcha of Azar, gun of Shar Hanisko of Tavchai, Nisham Rav Chamish, the Rameir, Champaitim. So it's a kasha. We see clearly Rameir holds that you're Chayv Dal Behay also in that case. So why does our Mishnah, if we want to establish it possibly, like the sheet of Rameir, so Rameir holds it's also in Shabbos, and that's not what our Mishnah says. So Amri Bar Mina. Now you have to exclude that. Dahid Ha'id Marlam Rabbi Yochanan Rabbi Yochanan Yermel Asam says Rabbi Yermi Yom Rabbi Shimon Lakish Rabbi Avin Rabbi Law V'chol Chavorta, the entire group Mishmei Rabbi Yochanan Amri B'Tavech Alidi Acher. We're talking about a case of Tavech Alidi Acher. There's a long answer to get to those few words. Here we say it's an exception that someone else did the tficha. Someone else did the tficha. So one second, if someone else did the tficha, so they did the avera by doing the tficha on Shabbos. So what does that have to do with me? So I understand this person who did the tficha. So why did this person who did the tficha? So he obviously violated Shabbos. So you can't say Kim Ramina. So why does our Mishnah say you're chayav on Shabbos? Because he did the Chil Shabbos, but since he was your shliach to do the avera of mechira, so you're chayav dal b'hei. What do you mean? We always say that they're in shliach devar avera. Not always. This is one of the two or possibly three exceptions brought down in Kedushin, which we saw not too long ago, okay, that the din is that Yishlech Levar Avera, because of this Gzeres HaKosav. So therefore that's the answer. Or, how else we can learn it? Either Rabbi Shmuel, Tana Oz, Rabbas HaShleach, Rabbi Chizkiah, Tana Tachas, Rabbas HaShleach. Regardless, we know that that's the din. When it comes to typically Ein Shleach Devar Avera, because Divrei Rab, Divrei Talmud, Divrei Mishaymin. So we listen. You're supposed to listen to your Rabbi. So if someone tells you to sin, don't listen to them. However, the exception is when it comes to this, even though someone else did the avera, because they did the sin, you're still chayiv. They're considered like your shliach, and therefore they are chayiv misa. You're not chayiv because you weren't machal Shabbos. So for that, they're responsible. However, for the act of mechira, or in this case, the tficha rather, so the din is that you're chayiv dal b'hei. So Maskam Bar Zutra Mi Kamidi. Is there anything Di'il Ovid Ihu Lo Machayev? It's hard, Ovid Shleach Machayev. It's hard to understand. If I did the sin myself, then I wouldn't have and shechted on Shabbos, I wouldn't have to pay down the hay. Now that someone else did it and not me, now I have to pay. It's a very important concept. It's not that you're not chayiv to pay dal v'hei. It's just that we're not going to have you pay because we're already killing you. So what are we going to do? Before we put you and strap you to an electric chair, of course, that's not on the dal mises, we're going to say, oh, by the way, you owe us $200 in taxes or whatever it is. This guy has bigger problems, right? So it's true. He's actually technically chayiv, maybe dal v'hei, but we're not going to actually make him pay it. So it's not that, oh, if the shliach did it, so I have to pay. So now if I do it and shecht on Shabbos, I don't have to pay. It's because they're killing you. It's not because they don't have to pay. You're looking at it backwards. So the patri. So it says hard to understand. If someone else did the shechita on Shabbos, and we hold this din of yesh shliach damar avera, and so the question is, and therefore that's the reason why you're chayiv dal v'hei. So why would the Rabbanan say you're potter? So Amri man chacham Rav Shimon, you have a shechita shenirui lo shmei shechita. He says it's not a shechita because if you do a shechita on Shabbos, so it's not a valid shechita. You can't use it. It's aser oilamis. We'll see the Gemara soon. So Amri, 1 second. Bishlam avodah zara. I can understand avodah zara, which is aser forever. It's a shechita shenirui. It's aser b'hana. The shor niskel is also aser b'hana, as we see in the second parak in Psachim and other places, as well as here. Shechita shenirui. El Shabbos shechita roihi did not. Hashaychet b'Shabbos and we Kippurim avshim is chayim b'nafshay shechitas kshera. So even though you're going to be killed, we say, oh, but he didn't get the shechita. It was still a good shechita. So because if it's a mitzias, if he did the shechita, he did the shechita. He shouldn't have done it on Shabbos, but he did it properly. So therefore, the meat is kosher. So the question is, how do you say it's a shechita sheneruya? It says even you do a shechita on Shabbos, it's still okay. So Amri Savel Rav Yochanan a Sandler. Actually, according to one Mandi Omer, which is what we're going to say, that shechita on Shabbos is aser forever. You known did not. Hamavashel b'Shabbos b'shaygig. If a person inadvertently cooks on Shabbos, yoichel, you can still eat it. But mezel yoichel the Rameir. Rameir says you cannot eat this. And when he says he can eat it, Rashi says even yourself, even on Shabbos itself. However, b'mezel you're not allowed to eat it on Shabbos. And also others aren't allowed to eat it, as well as Rashi explains. Rabbi Yehuda Omer b'shaygig yochel b'motzei Shabbos. You can't, even though you cooked on Shabbos, b'shaygig, we still don't allow you to eat it on Shabbos. B'meizid lo yechel lamas. You can't eat it all. And here's the key line here. It was b'shaygig after Shabbos is over. Others can eat it, but you're never allowed to eat it. But at least others, you can give it to others, so it's still mutter b'hana. B'meizid lo yechel lamas lo l'chayim. You cannot eat it. No one could eat it. Doesn't matter if it's Shabbos, even after Shabbos. So therefore, according to them, according to this shita, it's the shechita sheneruya. If it's the shechita sheneruya, it's lo shmei shechita, and that's the reason why you put them down the hay. My time to Rav Yochanan Sandler. So why is he so strict on Shabbos? Because the Darish Rav Chia, as he would darish in the Pischa de Menasiya, the pasuk says the Shmartem as the Shabbos ki kodesh yilchem. So what are we going off from this pasuk? Ma kodesh. Just like when it comes to din of that which is kodesh, the din is aser b'achila. You're not allowed to eat it because it's kodesh. It's not yours. Av mas Shabbos asur b'achila. You can't eat it. So if that's the case, just like chil Shabbos is asur b'achila too, that ma kodesh asur b'hana, av ma'aser Shabbos asur b'hana. Why are you stopping at achila? You can't. It's asur b'hana as well. So shalchem yehei. So the fact that it says lachem, that shows you it's not exactly like the din of kodesh. Kodesh at least will say it has some stringencies like kodesh that you can't eat it, but it's at least lachem that it's mutter b'hana. So in second, where it says shalchem yehei. So yachal feel b'shaygig. Talmud le'er mechal lehem mois yumos. B'mezin marti lach lo b'shaygig. This whole pasuk is only talking about b'mezin. B'shaygig, it's even according to other shitas mutter b'hana and mutter b'achila. So pligi ba Rav Acha Ravina. It's actually a machlokes. Chada Imer Master Shabbos deraisa. Chada Imer Master Shabbos derabanan. One says Master Shabbos deraisa, says Rashi, and therefore it's asur and bachila. You can't eat it. The other one says din derabanan. So man diyama deraisa kida amron, as we saw based on these psukim. Man diyama derabanan Imer kura kodesh hu kodesh in massive kodesh. It is kodesh, but your actions don't make it sanctified that it's asur. So Bishlam the Deraisa, I can understand if you hold Deraisa Abdul Hafi for that reason, as we continue to ayin Aleph Amid Beis, for that reason, Pati Rabbanan. That's the reason why the Rabbanan Pater, says Rashi, the Shechita Shena Royahi. And he holds like the Shita Reb Shimon. Elo Amad Yom Rabbanan, if it's according to this, it's really a Shechita Roy Midaraisa, so okay, Midaraban you're not eat it. But Midaraisa you could, so am I Pater Rabbanan, so why the Rabbanan say your Pater Dal V'Hei, it's a Shechita Roya, a Shaira, but as I ever saw in this, sharing this skull. Sometimes the Gemara just says a shar, and you should figure it out. Here the Gemara helps you out a little bit and tells you, no, it's all about Avodah and shar and iskol. Those things are aser midiraisa, but not on Shabbos. Shabbos, if you machal Shabbos by bishul, so you're not going to be chayiv. You're chayiv for violating Shabbos, but your maisim do not become aser. Rameir, my machayiv sheicha Avodah Zarah. According to Rameir, why does he say that if a person shechs for Avodah Zarah, why does he say you're chayiv? Hivan de shachar porta. Once you shechted a little bit of this animal, asra, it becomes asar. Idach isuri hanahu. It's asar b'hana. V'lo demari katavach. V'lo didei katavach. So it's not yours. You didn't shech that which is yours. So why should, according to the shita of Rameir, say you're chayiv dal v'hei? Says Rashi, the kol sacha daitich yesh no shchita mitchil v'atzoif. So the shchita is a process. It starts. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end. And therefore, mitchilasa, second you start doing the ma'isa shchita, nesr mishum zivchei meisim. It becomes aser because of zivchei meisim. Le'inyan tashum midal v'hei v'tavchai. When it comes to the chiyuv of slaughtering it, Kulo be'inan has to be completely shechted, as we're going to see later on. Ki gamerlo lav demari katavach, and therefore when you shechted it, completed that point, it was no longer yours. Shekavar ibda mimenu kodim shchita v'nesula, because since it was l'shem avodah zara, so as soon as you began that process, it automatically becomes asur b'hana at the beginning, and therefore it's not yours anymore. B'havili kemo sheshlich or. It's like you threw it into the fire, says Rashi. Kodim shchita. The misham karen v'kefel sulo. I understand you stole it, so you'd have to pay the kefel, but you shouldn't have to pay down the hay. So why does he say you pay down the hay? So Marava b'oimer b'gemar zvicha hu ovda. It's very similar to what we said before when it came to throwing it in yesterday's daf, throwing a chayfetz into my rishus on Shabbos to be coin it through Mechira. So if you make certain stipulations, it can happen at the same time. So if you said, I only want the Avodah Zarah to take place, Dafka at the Gemar Zvicha, not the beginning. If you didn't say anything, you're right. But since you said it at the same time, so therefore for that reason, it actually was yours. And therefore, since it was yours, therefore the din is that it's happening at the same time. Okay. So, okay, we have to table that completely for a second. We'll explain this a little bit better, but that's shot in Avodah Zarah. Shor Nizkol Asuri Hananin, who it's the same thing. Lav Demori Katavach V'la Katavach V'lav Didei Katavach. Same kasha. So Marava Hachmai Skin can go in Shemas L'Shaymer. So what happened? You gave this animal over to a guard to watch. V'hizik B'vei Shaymer. And damage took place. It damaged in the Beis Shomer. In other words, it killed. It became a Shorniskal in there. So therefore, everything happened there. But who had Beis Shomer? And there was testimony in that place too. So everything was not in your rishus. Everything was taking place in the domain of the Shomer. Rameir several krab Yaakov, several krab Shimon. Okay, what does that mean? Several krab Yaakov. First of all, he holds like Rabbi Yaakov. The Omer, Af Mishenigmor Dinoi, Hechziro Shermel Muchser. That even in this situation, he is able to say Harshal Chalafanecha. Even though, like we talked about when it comes to Chametz, the thing was stolen, Chametz Shavuot Pesach, if you can give it back, which that's considered to be a loss, Memela, not be a dayim. Over here, the Shita is, according to Rav Yaakov, that you can always give it back, says Rashi. The Oimel Harshal Chalafanecha. Nimsis, Shafal Pi She'enu Shava Klum, it's worthless, Garim Umamoinhu. The cholzman shehu kayim, as long as it's alive, shomer pateres atzmabo. The shomer can pater himself by giving it back. The im yoived yishalom damav, which means that if he would actually lose it, the shomer would still have to pay him back its basic worth. Okay, so that is the din. V'savak Rav Shimon di'amar davar hagarma mammon kamammon dami. He holds that something which is garim l'mamoin, like in this situation, this animal, which really is not money, but it's a garim l'mamoin, it's considered to have the same value as money. Did not. Rav Shimon Omer, kadashim shechai b'achriyuson, when it comes to kachim, which is a chiv achrayus, which means if it gets lost, for example, that you have to replace it. Says Rashi, if that's the case, chayiv. Says Rashi, ganav sheganav kadashim bebeis baalim. Let's say someone stole a carbon from someone in their house. So im kibum balav b'achrayus. Let's say the owner said, I am accepting achrayus on this. You make a neder, which means that I am accepting myself that if it gets lost or stolen, I'm going to replace it. And you're mafresh it, so the din is he has to pay kefil. Now, why should he have to pay kefil? Because it's not really the owner's anymore, because it belongs to Kudshim. But the fact is, since it was Kudshim, which was Chaim B'Achrayis, so therefore, if it gets lost or stolen, this owner will have to produce another carbon to bring because of his responsibility accepted by himself. So even though the original carbon that was stolen really doesn't have monetary value to the owner because in itself is a carbon, which is not his, but since he will have to replace it, it's a case of a davar hagarim l'mammon. You're causing him to lose money indirectly, and therefore that thing itself is considered to be a mammon to the point that you will be chayav to pay kefil on it. So alma davar hagarim dami. So therefore, that's what we see in that situation, and therefore it's the same thing over here. It says, okay, we saw that Rashi. So it's the same din when it comes to the din of the shomer, because he technically could give it back. And the question is, if let's say he decides he gets lost, so then he's responsible to have to give him another animal. So therefore, because of that, even though it's true, the shor haniskol, you would say it's asher b'hana and has no value, but it's not true, because since the shomer could have given it back at any point, and if he didn't give it back, he'd have to pay for it. Therefore, even though the shor haniskol really has no monetary value, it's a davar garma mammon, it's kamammon dami to be chayiv kefil. Okay, so there, or down the hay. Amar Rav Kahana Amrisa l'shmaisa kamei de Rav Zvid. So I said this sugi over to Rav Zvid Manar Da. He said, "Mi matzis mukmas mastis and Krameir. How can you establish it like Rameir v'al Rav Shimon v'al Katani Save Rav Shimon Poiter b'sheni elu b'chal b'kul mastis and How can you tell me that it's not like the Shita of Rav Shimon? It says in our Mishnah that these are the words of Rav Shimon. Rav Shimon says these two things I disagree with. As Mashmi agrees with everything else, so how can you say our Mishnah is not like Rav Shimon? All he's admitting to is the last piece, which said when it came to the din of shechting l'shem refuah or klavim, that he agrees because that's considered a shchita ruyahi. However, the rest of the Mishnah he doesn't necessarily have to agree or disagree with. Question 8. Mehem hatamim. What are the reasons? Liftor shaykhet lavod zora medal v'hei. Why should a person be putter from dal v'hei, but when it comes to avodah zara? So either because it's a shchita she'in ruya lav shma shchita, so that's one answer, or kivan deshachat b'porta asra. Once you shecht a little bit, it becomes asr if you hold yesh l'shchita mitchav sof. Iron Rashi. And the other one is asr b'hana, and it's not yours, and therefore since it's not yours, you're not going to be chayiv. Okay. Question TA29. TA29. Ganav shar niskov tavchay. Rameir Machai Arba B'Chamisha. Madua Haria Suri Hanahu Be'ez Oifen Mari B'Lib Daman. Okay. So Iri begun of a base of Shimer. It was stolen from the house of the Shimer, and the shore was damaged. Everything took place in the base of Shimer. There's Gemara Din in the base Shimer. So he holds that even though it's already Gemara Din and it's really Asr Bahana, nonetheless the Shimer can still give it back. And therefore, you hold that Davar Hagar Mamamoin Kamaman Dami. Okay, which is everything basically we said. TA 29. I'm not sure if I got that right. You would hope you did, because that's a long piece. So TA 29. And this is the answer is, let's find it. Okay, it's this whole sugya over here. Shimer, Hud Beis Nigbar Din Beis Shimer, Rameir Smirla Karav Yaakov, Similarly Karav Shimon. Okay. Alright. Let's see, maybe TB 30. Yeah, same thing. Katzan Amar Amir, the God of Shor Niskal, the Tavcha Yichayev Dal Dehe, Bahari Suri Hanahu, the Lav Damar Katavach, Kagan the Gam Beis Shimer, Sili, Haxir Mochser, Vasili Karav Shimon, Dever Karav Moment Kamam Dami. So it's the exact same answer. Ayin Aleph Almud Beis, TB 30. Finally finished that test. Got a test coming up soon for Dirshu. So we just finished finishing this cycle here. Okay, 2 dots. So even though it's true that maybe afterwards your father dies, so then the question is, why should I have to pay? Because I'm a Yarish. The din is you're still chayiv. So Bamini Rabbi Rav Nachman, Ganav Shor Shel Shnei Shutvan. Let's say you stole an ox which belonged to 2 partners, and you shechted, and you admit to one of them. Says Rashi, Al Chelko Umaydim Kanas Potter. We know that generally, because this is a whole din of Kanas, so we should normally say Modim Kanas Potter, but you're only moided to one of them. So Chamisha Bakar Rachman Avil Chamisha Chatzoi Bakar. Do we say that you're only chayiv if it's the whole thing? But because you are not moided Kanas on the whole thing, so since you're moided Kanas on part of it, that's it. Throws the whole thing out. Odilma Chamisha Bakar Amar Rachman Avil Chamisha Chatzoi Bakar. So according to this, we're saying no. The fact that you were maida with one of them, that's enough that you're not going to be chayav to pay the other portion to the other shutaf. Esvei, fact the Gemara, so you stole shech, then your father died. You still have to pay 4 and 5. Once your father died, it's almost like you're admitting to one of them. Since he is one of the brothers, let's say he has one other brother, okay? Let's say one other Yarish, right? So it's like he's a case of partners. So he owes part l'chara to the other brother, we see. Because that doesn't mean you would actually pay 4 and 5, because half of it would come to you. But you should still have to pay. It says you have to pay. Apparently, you have to pay the other half. So it's because it's a kasha. No. It's talking about the father already took you to court. Obviously, the father was still alive, and therefore there was a chiyuv of paying the whole thing before he died, which is masha what? So if, let's say, it wasn't a madabadin, then you wouldn't have to pay. So Yehachi had a tiny save. Why do we mention that case where he stole, but since his father died before he shechted or sold it, he doesn't have to pay Arba B'Chamisha? Why do you mention that case? Niflik b'didei. Mention the case itself where he shechted and then the father died, but maybe the question is now totally on whether there was Amad B'Din or not. The fact that it doesn't say that, maybe you're right that that's not the case. You're right. You would actually be able to make that distinction. So why doesn't it mention it that way? Because that's not really the correct flow of the Mishnahs. I did a nasiv reisha gana mishal aviv tavach hamachar v'achach meis aviv. Since it starts off talking about the first case of the Mishnah, the reisha talks about he did all these things and then the father died. So nasiv sefer nami gana mishal aviv umeis aviv v'achach tavach hamachar. So we put it in that language because it fits better. But you're right. There would actually be a distinction also in the Reisha between Amma B'din and not Amma B'din. So a Safra, in the morning, Amalei Chamisha Bakar Machmana Ve'afil Chamisha Chatzoi Bakar. Original, in the morning, he actually changed his mind. It says it's not true. But in the case of Shutvin Yutaka, would have to pay the half. So why didn't he say this at night? Why did he have a change of heart as we continue to Ayin Beis Amud Aleph? Because he did not eat the meat of an ox. This is Rashi Shroi B'Tainisaya. He was fasting. And since he was fasting, he wasn't able to be medactic into the matter very well. Or it's you can on the play of words means he didn't absorb the whole din of shechting the shore, right? So he had to eat the basa of the Torah, which could mean he literally ate the basa, and then that caused him to start thinking about it more. It's an interesting possible idea. There was dafka, the shore meat. That not that just stam. He was just saying I didn't eat yet. So why didn't he say I didn't eat? So maybe it's dafka didn't eat this meat. It's an interesting thing to think about. So what is the difference? Normally reisha krinin be utfacho kul bisura. Seifa krinin be utfacho kul bisura. So the reisha, in which there is a let's go into Rashi. Maishna Seifa, Kivan Deresha Filo Amad Bedin. So you even have to pay half, which is what we're saying our Mishnah holds. Seifa is Kishmes Aviv, the father died, Ve'achach Tavach Hamachar. So Lamul Yishalim Le'echav Es Chelkam. Why shouldn't he have to pay the portion to them? So Utvacho Kul Mashma. So the reason why in the Seifa is because we don't say that he shechted kul be'isser, because in the case of the seifa, what ended up happening was he shechted it before his father died, and then he shechted it. So even though he stole it, which is be'isser, but he didn't complete the act of teficha until after the father died, and therefore for that reason, when it comes to that situation, we say it's different. However, if let's say he shechted it and then the father died, which is kul be'isser, there we're going to say you're going to be chayav. Okay, we'll stop there, but question 9. So meim ha'ofanim ha'tuliyim di boyazus. How do we understand this? Either ganim shor shel shnei shutvin. We're talking about he stole one ox which belonged to partners. To one of them, or Ganim Shel Aviv, he shechted his father's animal. The Tavach, he shechted it. Umeis Aviv, and then the father died. So again, in that situation, also we would say that he would be pater, even though again he's really a shutef with his brother. So we say again, if v'loi chatzoi bakar, so therefore for that reason you would be pater. Question TA30. Ganav Mishel Aviv Umeis V'achach Tavach Hamachin Mishel Dalam V'hei Madua. So in the Havim, because we say Chamisha Bakar V'lo Chamisha Chatzoi Bakar, Maskan we say Kedelu Krin Be Tvachu Kule Bisura Adkan.